They do not answer to the U.S. military. They are the private American security forces in Iraq who have lately been likened to a lawless class of citizens. In our fourth story on the countdown, Blackwater USA resumes its protection of American diplomats 4 days after its guards allegedly killed 11 Iraqi civilians, including a woman and child. And as for that immunity from Iraqi prosecution, that may not resume. The Iraqi Interior Ministry has drafted legislation to give its government the power to prosecute American contractors in the wake of Sunday's slaughter at Baghdad's Nisour Square. But those American convoy run under the protection of Blackwater resumed today after consultations with the Iraqi government. And the top aide to Prime Minister al-Maliki admitted it would be difficult to expel Blackwater and other private contractors, as had been threatened earlier this week. Meantime, Secretary of State Rice has today ordered a full review of private security contractors guarding U.S. diplomats in Iraq, bringing to 3 the number of U.S. or joint U.S.-Iraqi investigations of Sunday's shootings. Blackwater USA maintains that its State Department convoy had responded to an armed attack, but an Iraqi government report based on eyewitness accounts says that the American security guards fired first and indiscriminately after somebody heard a car bomb detonating a mile away. Today, a Senate Policy Committee hearing began its own long task of trying to sort through this mess.
And you'll find that it varies company to company. Some, I would say, obey these rules of engagement to the T. Some, such as the last company I worked for, had no rules of engagement whatsoever. There was no oversight. You did not have to report anything adverse that happened on the road.
Let's turn now to an investigative reporter with The Nation magazine, author of Blackwater, The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army, Jeremy Scahill. Mr. Scahill, thanks for your time tonight.
My pleasure, Keith.
You were also one of the panelists at that Senate policy hearing today. Start, if you will, with a minute of Blackwater 101. How vast are these private security forces in Iraq? How did we become so reliant upon them? And is it just me that thinks this is beginning to sound like Lord of the Flies out there?
Or like the Wild West. You know, the Bush administration failed to build a coalition of willing nations, and so instead it built a coalition of billing corporations. Right now in Iraq, there are 180,000 so-called private contractors operating alongside 170,000 U.S. troops. So actually the military is the junior partner in the coalition that's occupying Iraq. And of these 180,000 contractors, perhaps the most prominent and dangerous are the heavily armed mercenaries of Blackwater USA.
So it also looks like these people, in particular Blackwater, are tied both to the policy, the Iraq policy of President Bush, but also the president's penchant for cronyism?
Well, I mean, this is a demand-based industry, and without the occupation of Iraq and continued funding of the war, Blackwater wouldn't exist. But this company is interesting. It's sort of the Maserati of mercenary firms, and the head of the company is a man named Eric Prince, who's a radical right-wing Christian evangelical who's been a major bankroller of the political campaigns of President Bush and his allies, and his family has given tremendous amounts of money to the core groups that make up the radical religious right. Blackwater literally is making a killing off of the escalation of violence and bloodshed in Iraq.
There are extraordinarily differing accounts of what happened in Nisour Square on Sunday, but in Newsweek today, Michael Hirsch described a Blackwater guard who had gotten drunk at a Christmas Eve party last year and basically killed someone for sport. The guard was never named. He was supposedly sent home by the company. End of that story. What kind of incidents have you found in your investigation that would make our hair stand up on end?
Well, Blackwater has been in Iraq since the very beginning. It was awarded a $27 million no-bid contract to protect Paul Bremer, the original ambassador there. Its operatives have regularly engaged in firefights. During one firefight in Najaf where they were shooting at Iraqis, they were caught on film talking about it being a turkey shoot. There have been numerous allegations that Blackwater operatives have shot civilians. Some of its operatives have used ammunition of a blended metal type that's banned by the U.S. military and then gone on to brag about how they watched the Iraqi victim's stomach explode. And this is also a company that is effectively trying to declare itself above the law in the United States. It's being sued for wrongful death by the families of former employees of Blackwater. And the company has actually said that it should be entitled to the same immunity from civilian litigation as the military. And at the same time, its highly paid lobbyists have been waxing poetic about how it would be inappropriate to place them under the Uniform Code of Military Justice because they're civilians. So they've effectively declared themselves above the law.
So what are the remedies then?
Well, I think that the Bush administration should not be allowed to use unaccountable mercenary forces to mask the scope of the occupation. I mean, none of these guys have been prosecuted, Keith, not a single armed contractor. So either we have tens of thousands of Boy Scouts working as mercenaries in Iraq, or something is fundamentally wrong with the system. And I also place the blame on the Congress, because it's taken the Congress 4 years to wake up to the fact that there are more contractors than soldiers in Iraq, and there's absolutely no effective system of oversight, and there's no punishment for the crimes they're committing.
It is madness to the extreme. Jeremy Scahill, the author of Blackwater, The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army. Thank you for your time tonight, sir.
Thanks, Keith.